Hello everyone, it's Para from the Paradox Brothers YouTube channel. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about side decking in GOAT formats. What I have in front of you is a deck that I have on the channel already, or at least one very similar to it, that is really just a Chaos control with Shiny Angels, also known as Angel Chaos. I'm not saying this is the best deck in the format, this is just the deck that I'm using right now. I do think this deck is much better than people think, but that's for another day. What I want to talk to you about today is how, just looking at this deck as an example, how I would side against the most meta relevant decks in the format today. So currently with this build, I don't go over every single card, but it's not necessarily overly geared to defeating one deck. Not like how you would say Warriors is overly geared to defeating Chaos Turbo, right? I will say that GOAT control, historically speaking, or Metamorphosis Scapegoat combo, it's actually pretty good against Warriors, so that's that. We have the 3 Book of Moon, which will make the Nobleman Crossout a little bit more live. And we have some aggression as far as Kaiku and the Shining Angels. We're not playing tons of cards face down, we just have the 2 flip effect monsters. So I wouldn't say it's overly bad against anything or overly good necessarily. I do think it's a good deck in general, just it can be, requires a lot of skill and effort to use correctly, I think. Anyway, moving on to the main topic of this video. If I were playing against Warriors, say game 1, personally, even though I have 3 Royal Decrees in here and Warriors run like, anywhere between 10 to 14 traps generally, I still would probably take out the Royal Decree. And I'll tell you the reason why. So looking down this side deck, it's not super refined. I kind of threw a lot of stuff in here that I just thought would be good for this video. And I actually do use something similar to this. I think the 3 Jalgun's a little bit overkill, but that's okay. Yeah, so moving on. I would take out like the 3 Royal Decree, put in the 5 Battle Traps, the 3 Bottomless, and the 2 Sakuretsu Armor. So I'd be taking out the 3 Royal Decree and the 2 Nobleman Crossout. Just take out the Royal Decrees because I'm not really that worried about their battle traps. In Chaos decks in general, it's okay if cards go to the grave, especially when you have 3 Chaos monsters, you're just filling up the grave. And unlike Thunder Dragon Chaos decks, we don't really have that ability just to discard for free. We're playing no discard traps. So really, we're going to get a lot of cards in the grave through battle. And if we go 1-for-1 with a battle trap, we're not really that brokenhearted about that, so it's completely okay. Royal Decree's mostly in there, generally I would say, because Chaos Turbo can use their traps so well, especially if they play Phoenix Wingwind Blast. That card can be a very big nuisance for this deck. We don't really want that. Stop the Dry Greeds, all that stuff, right? Regeki Breaks and so forth. So yes, I would take out the 3 Royal Decrees, the 2 Nobleman Crossouts, if you were playing against Warriors. And also, I would take out 2 Book of Moons, either 2 Book of Moons or 1 Book of Moon and 1 Metamorphosis. I think either is probably fine. And I would put in 1 Mystical Space Typhoon and 1 Nobleman Extermination. So really quickly, if you don't know what this card is, this is not that common. Target 1 face down spell or trap on the field, destroy that target, and if you do banish it, then if it was a trap, each player reveals their main deck and banishes all copies of it. So you do have to destroy the card with this effect. So they can chain, if they can chain, they can chain and prevent the destruction effect. So if you target a face down ring of destruction, they can chain it and it won't be banished. That drawback is the reason why a lot of people don't play this. That being said, I think this card is very slept on because Solemn Judgment is one of the most powerful cards in the entire format. And yes, you can chain Solemn Judgment to this, but you wouldn't really want to do that in all cases because you're going to have to pay half your life points to negate this to prevent the other ones from being banished. And most decks when they play Solemn Judgment, they play it in 3, including Warrior. Most Warrior decks have 3 Solemn Judgment in the main deck. That's pretty standard nowadays. So this one card can destroy all their Solemn Judgments, which that's what they really depend upon. Any deck that has Solemn Judgment, for the most part, has it in there because they need it. So if you can banish all copies of that, we don't have any Solemn Judgments in our main deck, or our side deck for that matter, this is a great card. But that being said, obviously you can hit a Sakuretsu Armor, which would get rid of your 2, which would not be very good. But most Warrior decks do not run Bottomless Trap Hole right now, so you're pretty safe in that regard, so you're still going to be covered. And now that I'm actually thinking about this, instead of the Sakuretsu armor, if you really wanted to go into like the null mode extermination path, you can always go with a widespread ruin, because effectively this is very similar to Sakuretsu armor. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy the one attack position monster your opponent controls with the highest attack your choice if tied. So in some ways this can be better because your opponent could be strategically attacking you, and but in a lot of cases it's very similar to Sakuretsu armor. Still different though, and that's important. So like if you didn't want to run the Sakuretsu armors because you're afraid of banishing them, run these and you're never going to run into that problem most of the time. Most of your opponents will never be playing this. So that's an example really quickly of what I would do for warriors. Moving on to the other very popular deck, which is obviously Chaos Turbo. At this time, I don't really have a ton in here that I have against Chaos Turbo, but I will run over the few that I have in here at the moment. One is Soul Release. I think Soul Release, a good time Soul Release can just completely destroy Chaos Turbo's day, and they pitch all their Thunder Dragons and their Pot of Greed, Graceful Charity, Sinister Serpent, whatever, just banish whatever is a problem for you. Mind Control, obviously a really good card. In fact, I would probably reduce 2 Jougans and at least put in 1 more Mind Control. Oops. It's nice that I'm updating this for later as well, that way it's and now, for now, I'll just put in 3. 3 is probably too many, but for now I'll put 3. Mind Control is a very good card against Chaos Turbo. Not only can it get their flips, but it can also banish their Chaos monsters. Keep in mind they do have 3, so you have to be strategic the way that you use this card. You can't just use it blindly, and I think that's where most people run into an issue. But the same could be said for Solemn Judgment. It's not too rare where I see someone just more or less destroy themselves with Solemn Judgment, and that's still revered as one of the best trap cards, and is still, even by my own opinion, one of the best trap cards in the game. That being said, you have to know how to use it correctly, and the same is said for this. You have to use this card correctly. Now with that being said, if you have 3, you don't have to use it as correctly. If you only put 1 in the deck, you better make it work well. Just be cautious to be kind of cognizant of what your opponent has set, what they are setting, but also what's in the grave. Like if the Magician of Faith face down, but there's nothing in the grave, who cares really, right? Is it worth the risk of mind controlling a Sandganner or a Sinister Serpent if they don't really have anything worth getting? Just let them get it, and then for the future. Just be strategic in the way that you use this card. It takes a lot of skill to use this card correctly, in my opinion. So that's pretty much it for Chaos Turbo for the most part, unless they do play Solemn Judgment, I'll put the Extermination in. But most of the time I'm keeping the Royal Decrees in. I'm not putting Battle Trips in because they don't really attack you. For Goat Control is kind of, I think, steadily becoming more popular again. I think Bottomless Trap Hole is terrible for Goat Control most of the time. You can get their Air Knights and stuff like that, but Sakuretsu armors or Widespread Ruins are much better. But in that matchup, especially if they're on the Royal Decree package, you're not going to hurt too much because you do have the 3 Book of Moon. You're obviously going to want to keep those in against Goat Control, but you probably would side out at least 2 of these to put in the Widespread Ruins. And maybe that would be the better answer, is to take out 1 Mind Control and put in a 3rd Widespread Ruin. I think 3 Mind Control can be too much, but additional battle traps in the right matchup is really never a bad thing. So that's it for the Goat Control for the most part. You have the 1 Tsukuyomi, I'd say, so that helps you as well in the 3 Book of Moon. This, if anything, this is geared. It's a Goat Control deck, kind of Chaos Control deck, I guess. That's geared to really beat other decks like that. Maybe even in a different time period of Goat format, it would have been a very, very strong deck and maybe very somewhat common. But for reasoning, as you see, I had 3 Jougans in here, now I have 2. But we can search the Jougan through the Shining Angel, which can come in very handy, especially if they're beating you down, you don't have any answers, you bring this out, you just wipe the whole board. You can actually just normal summon this a lot of times against Freezing Inky decks, and if you have a backup like Book of Moon or something, you're safe most of the time. They may not even have a normal summon. And then this card is far better, in my opinion, than Jougan, because this game just can win straight up the game for you. especially if you manage to get game 1. And the chances of getting this off game 2 and game 3 are dramatically increased, and your chances of winning in general are dramatically increased. They just can't do anything about this card most of the time, and I'm sure they're going to side against it if this becomes more popular, like side maybe some battle traps in there, but most of the time they just don't have any traps. That's it for Reasoning Gate. I do think Reasoning Gate is very scary and very powerful. Yeah, that's it. That's pretty much all the ones I want to discuss right now. I mean, Burn is a deck to talk about as well. I do think Burn is very good, and obviously you have all your OTKs like Rescue Cats and things like that. I think Rescue Cat in general and OTKs struggle against Scapegoat decks because you have an out to their Giant Trunade, and they just hate using a Giant Trunade, then you Scapegoat, and now they know they can't do anything until they get rid of them. And and possibly, depending on how the meta shifts, maybe I put another Scapegoat in here for those matchups, especially if Cyber Steam becomes more popular, because you definitely don't want to lose to that. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, I think. Hopefully you guys learned something. We'll make more videos like this in the future. If you guys have any ideas, let us know in the comments below. We appreciate you watching as always, and enjoy your evening, day, morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye.